Okay, so this is one of the buttons that I created from my previous project here. So Dungeon Ballers, and here's the font for it. Let's Ball. So this would actually become close. Okay. Let's go back over to the design tab and let's start to sort of figure out what we're going to do. I want the background to be like a nice sort of like pinky purpley color, maybe purple with like a scrolling texture in the background. I'm not going to do scrolling today because it's just too much work, but I do have a video that shows you how to create like an infinite scrolling background within Figma, and I'll link that up there somewhere for you to take a look at. It's actually quite interesting how it managed to work. I have no idea how, but yeah, it was awesome when it did work, and it seems to be relatively reliable. So take a look at that. So the scrolling texture background that I just mentioned, I already created it within Unity a while back, and this is it implemented. So this is like a Unity shader graph, and I'm not going to show you exactly how to do that now because that's like another tutorial itself, but here it is working. So don't worry about the Unity screen too much. There's lots going on, and yeah, it's quite a lot going on. And then we'll hop over to Figma. I'll drag this in because even at this stage, we want to be fast. We want to, try and get the art down as quickly as possible. So for us to go and try and reproduce this exactly at this point is probably not the best thing to do. But if you did want to, follow along, then there is a link to the community file in the description, and you should be able to sort of like access this type of thing where we're essentially covering the same thing really. So you got our background, but yeah, it's up to you what you want to do really. But I'll drag this out, place that, just so we're actually working from the same files. Why not? Going to go over to this again, and in fact I'll go over to Unity. I just want to know what that color is, so let's take a look at the shader, and we've got two different ones. So that controls the background and that controls the tint of the icon. So we'll sample that hex code. Yep, sample that hex code, hop over to here, and then we're going to select the background color and we're going to change that hex code there. So we've got something really similar, and this is absolutely fine for what I have in mind at this point. We need to bring it below. Oh, that's the wrong item. So opening this up, let's just make sure the background is actually in the background inside the frame. So this sort of stuff gets really fiddly if you can, and it's fiddly in Unity as well, and we're going to see that later on. But yeah, so that's looking good. I know that my text in the game is Luckiest Guy because it's quite a playful sort of like, a bit of a kid's game. I quite like using this font. It's really nice. It's free as well. And the text, not too sure. Luckiest Guy might be a bit overkill, but let's just do it for now. So refreshes in. There we go. Something like that. So that's looking quite nice. Simple, and that's what's important at the moment. Nice and simple. So this is what I was talking about before about the partial disclosure thing. I've just added an item. Now looking at the screen, it doesn't look like the screen scrolls, but if we were to like show a little bit like that, you get more of an idea. But that's going to mean that we need to just sort of rejig some things a little bit. So let's go to the auto layout. I'm just going to adjust the padding -5. Okay, cool. And the button, so we have our button, but we're just going to swap it straight out for this. If you were wondering how to make a button like this, actually pretty easy. easier than dragging it into this scene because of the auto keeps going into the auto list, which is what we don't want. So yeah, some sort of massive button like that, why not? Close it a bit. I'm just going to increase that. There we go. So something like that. But this button is really easy to build. Inner shadow times 2, really. So you've got one at the bottom, which is probably this one. You can sort of see it's coming in at the side slightly. And then we've got the one at the top, which just sort of lifts it. And then there's a drop shadow on the overall button with a very small linear gradient. So if you wanted to have a go at creating that, if that's a struggle, then I've got a ton of Figma button videos, and I'll link one here actually. So I'm going to go into the main task item here, and I'm going to change the shape or the color to white, which is the style that I'm going for task items and stuff like that. Do I want it to be rounded? Not entirely sure. Okay, so found the image, we just need to get it in here. So I'm just going to select the fill option, and I'm going to use fill image. I'm going to upload from my computer, and I'm going to locate the image that I wanted. So it was the one of Bo, and here she is. So yeah, she's looking pretty good there actually. Yeah, that's good. And then I need to adjust the text. So once again, this will be similar. Luckiest guy. Here we go. And a lot's changed since I did one of my previous videos. Is this wasn't there before, where it previewed the font. So that's really cool that it's now in place. They must have watched one of my videos and felt inspired to do it. And we'll colorize this. So let's just go for this color for now. It's fine. I don't want this to be like too dry or boring, so I'm gonna like give it like a little angle or something like that. So I'll go to the fill. I'm just gonna like, yeah, something like that, and I'll do the same for this as well. So when that fills up, it's gonna, in Unity, it will be perfect. It will fill up perfectly. Another way to do it would be to like create a mask and then just, yeah, let it fill up that way. But yeah, so luckiest guy again. It's looking decent. This, I'll probably want it to like appear on a label or something, like it's a sort of a sticker. So it could be, if I rotate that around, something like that. Let me just shimmy this around a little bit so that can go on top, that can go there. Gonna make this black. Gonna round it off a little bit. And make the text like that. Yeah, so I'm already feeling pretty good about that. It's looking quite nice. Pretty good. Something like that. Gonna group this, and I'm gonna call this counter label. I'm just gonna rotate it a little bit so it looks kind of like it's been stamped on. I think that'd be pretty cool. And then the same with this guy. I'm gonna swap this image for a coin image actually. So we'll go to the same place. Upload from computer, and we've got a coin that I modeled. So this is a Thunderpaw coin. Thunderpaw being our little indie game studio that we're doing, which is fun, tons of fun. So much energy. Yeah. The next bit will be we've got the claimed banner. We do the claimable state. Probably just change the text here. Like I mentioned, I sort of quite like the just how basic the art is. Sometimes like you can just overwork art, but there's something in this, and we'll try it in game before I iterate any further on that claimable banner there. But yeah, that's cool. And the claimed state, wow, that's going to be pretty much what we've got. Going to dim that out. So that's the default state, good. In fact, I need to turn that off for that state then, so at some point. Yeah, so the claim state, and whoops, I wonder what was going on there. I must have dragged it out by accident, but that needs to go back in here, and then below these two. There we go, back to normal now. So we'll change the typography here. I'll make this a little bit bigger. What do you reckon? Claimed. There you go. That's fun. Why not? Why not celebrate it? Okay, cool. So that's that, and that's the states done for here and here and here. Okay, looking good. The only thing that's sort of missing is like maybe like a nice little shadow on the box. So let's add that in. That's just simple. But I'll probably go for like not a blurry one, just like a hard one. And yeah, keep the spread to 0. Offset it a little bit so we've got like a nice bit of light coming down from there. Okay, nice. So that's that. Everything's looking how we want it really. The only thing that's sort of like not quite right are these. So like a quick way of dealing with this, might even be a quicker way, is just to sort of duplicate this twice. Just rename this one to delete this one and delete this one. Claimable state and claimable state and claimed state. Okay, cool, back on track. So let's move these into place. We've got one up here, I think. Hiding. Okay, cool. Obviously these are all the same, but what we need is, so in the claimable, let's just toggle that on. And then in the claimed, let's toggle that on. There we go. So we know actually that the claimed needs to be rounded to match if we want it to. I'm sort of thinking maybe, just maybe, we get rid of the rounded corners altogether. I don't know, it's like a choice, personal choice, or I've just changed my mind on a whim. Okay, that's looking good. Right, so we've got our task items there. Looking good. And then we've got everything in this list. So let's say that's fine. That's claimable, and these are, you have already claimed them in the past. There we go. So if I zoom out a little bit, just sort this layout. Yeah, cool. That's good. I'm going to take this and I'm actually just going to drop the overall transparency of it, just so it sort of fades off a little bit. Or actually, I just had a better idea. And that's going to be a case of, it's something that I end up doing in Unity sometimes. So it's kind of fun to see it. So let's move that underneath the main button. And we're going to create like a nice gradient ramp that's going to sort of like feather the items away really. So let's go to gradient. So that's fine. We're going to set that to 0%. I'm gonna do something like that. Looks cool. Yeah. What do you reckon, guys? Let me know. And then I'm gonna press play and we'll see what we're dealing with. Ooh, we've got some issues. Oh, there we are. It just took a while to load it in. It might be that it's a massive image, you know, it could be quite big. Right, so you can sort of see it scrolls fine, but the gradient doesn't stick. So we just need to sticky at the stay in place, fixed stay in place. There we go. And we want that to be the same. So we don't actually want anything that scrolls. Okay, cool. So that's updated. Very nice. Before we jump into Unity, let's export. We'll export this button, and this will be the only one that will prepare, because if we can do this right, we can do all the others. So let's take the button. Just going to move it over to its own place. So it's on its own little frame now. And like, this is a bit of a tricky one because it's like all skewed and stretched and stuff like that. So I'm going to do two versions just so we can sort of see. Technically we can export this as it is and implement it into Unity, but the thing that's not going to happen is it's not going to be a power of 2. Now you need it to be a power of 2 in order for it to be compressed, you know, when the game's running, so like the game runs a bit more, you know, it's not as heavy, like the file size isn't as big and the quality isn't as high or maximum. But in this case, let's imagine we wanted this to be a power of 2. So I would put a power of 2 is like 512 by 512, for example. Well, power of 2 is 512 by 512, for example. Obviously that's massive, so I need to start with a smaller size, and then that will export that out bigger. So let's do 64 by 64. So if you multiply that, you're going to get 128, 256, 512, depending on what you want. We're going to remove the text because we don't actually want to export that in the into Unity, because we're going to use Text Mesh Pro once we get in there. Just going to double check everything, just to make sure. So we've got a frame. Let's turn that on. Let's get the asset. So there's obviously some radius on the frame that we don't want, and we want to turn that shadow off as well. I'll probably put the shadow in Unity. And then, yeah, so that's sort of what I'd expect to sort of see. This is going to like be a little bit sort of funky in that if we slice this, we're going to get like weird stretching, but I want to show you anyway. And I want to show you with, I'll show you with a normal sized object. So something like that. Okay, cool. So let's export that. Okay, we're in Unity now, so we're going to be taking a look at a lot of this stuff, but if you notice where we imported or exported our sprite from in Figma, we've now got it here. So if I click on that, I'm just going to need to change some of these sets. I'm going to change it to sprite and make sure the sprite mode is only single, and then I'm going to hit apply, and you notice that down here we've got like the nice transparent background and stuff now, which is what we want. I'm going to drag this over to here. You'll notice like, oh, it's all stretched and ugly and all that type of stuff, and that's kind of like a feature really. But what we need to do, go back to the sprite, open the sprite editor, and we need to put some slicing in there. So I'm going to put 128 by 128 in each of these, and that's going to do, if you think back to the old Photoshop days where you used to slice up your websites and stuff like that using 9-slice scaling and all that type of stuff, this is what this is. So it is quite interesting. And then under image type, We'll set it to sliced, and then you'll notice that we've got this nicely sort of like sliced image now, so the radiuses are respected. It's quite massive. So we're only dealing with a relatively small button here in contrast to the sprite itself. So if we hopped over to Figma and exported at, let's say, a few ways to deal with this, but going back and then back in is one way, and then we'll replace it. And there you go, so that's fixed up really nicely. So that's how you get your assets from Figma into Unity. That's pretty much it. Or at least that's as much as I'm going to do in this, because it's about to get even more exciting, because we're going to be jumping into Unity. And you saw a little bit when I was just sort of like showing you the background and stuff like that, but we're going to create this whole screen. So all of these elements, we're going to be looking at the prefabs as well. So let's jump straight into that. We've opened up the project. If you want to like really learn how to like get Unity set up and stuff, let me know in the comments. I'll be more than happy to do it. It's just way too involved to like cover in like this video. We've got quite a lot of ground to cover. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a UI panel. So that's going to make it full screen. That's what we want. Going to add that shader that I spoke about earlier on, shader graph. That's the jobby there. So that one. So that's what I showed you earlier on. This is going to be the daily task. We're just going to like start throwing in, the text. We're going to create the prefab for the task item just in white box form at the moment. Okay, so prefab and text. I'm going to drag that in. That's just going to appear somewhere. There it is. I'm going to change the styling. Daily task. Okay. Duplicate this. So this will be duplicated for the timer. So what did we have? So we had refreshes in. Okay, cool. So refreshes in. And then we had the time, so 9 days, 23 hours, that type of thing. I'm gonna make this, we're gonna use a H3 for that one, and a H2 for that one, so there's a little bit of hierarchy, like you've got subheadings and stuff. In more professional projects, I'd spend more time creating like a proper style sheet, like you would if you were like a web, doing web development or something like that. But for the sake of what we need right now, this and being an indie game that we're just sort of like trialing, don't need to spend too much time there. Right, we're going to create a new panel. So this will be task item. I'm just going to adjust things a little bit. What should I do? Right, let's hop over to Figma and just sort of see what we were dealing with in terms of sizes of things. Over to the design tab. Okay, so about 300 by 90. So if we do that here, so 300 by 90, you remember it's tiny. Because we're working with different canvases, or different sizes there. So we just multiply that by 3 like I showed you earlier on, and then that gets us roughly what we were sort of hoping for, really. Okay, it's looking good. So that's our task item, and then we need to add an image to that. So right click, UI image, there we go, and we're just going to anchor that over to the side. Can we just eyeball it for now? Let's go to, see if we've got a crawler image. Oh, there we are, perfect. Okay, so bow's in place, that's great, that's what we want. I'm going to steal this text here, that's just Command D, and then drag it in so it lives within this parent, so when you move it, it moves with the parent. Change the color, and call this daily task description. Nice. Place that up there. Okay, cool. So within here we've got a scroll bar that we need to add. So we're going to use a slider, which is this. It's quite small actually. Can drag that into place. I'm going to remove the handle. Don't really want that right now. I'm just going to apply any default color to it for the minute. Hilarious. Just reset these so it's all like, you know, edge to edge. Drop this down. And then let's try wiggle this slider, see what happens. Hey, cool. That's looking good. I'm going to change that background actually to maybe something like this. That looks pretty decent. And if we change the fill image to the same, what happens? Okay, it goes a little bit funky, but I think that's fine. Let's change our target graphic. Okay, cool. Let's change this to filled, and then we'll do it horizontal, and it's going to fill from left. Yeah, and let's see what happens. There we go. It's looking good. Then we'll add the text, so I'll just duplicate the text above it. I'm going to change this to 1 of 2, so that's our counter that we've got. Obviously we need to match the concept, so let's just refresh our minds. I actually think it might look cooler white. So yeah, I'll probably change it to white here actually. Just gonna get that in position how we want it. So we've got a task item, we've got our task image. Now we need our reward image. Okay, and we know that that's going to be the currency that we saw within the concept. So yeah, it looks pretty good. And then we need to do the text. So this is the counter, 999. Looks nice, but I want a little panel for that actually. So I'm gonna create a little panel, color it black. Drag our text into it so it becomes a child of it. And then, yeah, you can sort of see, making sure it's nicely positioned. I'm going to select a rounded sprite. I've got a few based on different sizes. There's also ways of doing it procedurally, but we really don't need to worry about that right now. Hey, that looks good. Looks pretty cool. So our task item is actually a button, so we need to remember that we have to add a button component to it so we can handle the different states. So for example, if it became inactive, you know, and that ball here was turned off, you know, you would see that happen. But we're going to handle it slightly differently. So that's that. It's looking pretty good. Let's take a look at our concept again. Yeah, close enough. And we've got the little claimable label across the top. So let's create a panel, claimable panel. And that's stretched already, which is fine, but I think we'll stretch it to the top. So let's do 200, see what happens. Yeah, so this needs to be in the task item, so it can anchor nicely to where it is really. And this is that sicky green. Where is it? Default sicky green. Oh yeah, that's what we want. Something like that. Nice. And then once again, we've got the text going in, so place that. It's got a little rotation on it. And this is, oh my gosh, claimable. There we go. Stretch the text to fit, so it looks all good. Just make a bit more of a song and dance about it. Slightly bigger heading. Yeah, looking good. And one of the cool things about Unity is they have some like random features like shadow. So you can, without having to use a sprite, you can just quickly add like a nice little drop shadow. And there it is, pretty much done. The only thing missing is the claimable overlay, which we need to do. So in the same way we did this one, we'll duplicate that. Claimed panel. There we are. Not claimable overlay, claimed overlay. And we'll do something like that. Looks good. And claimed. Oh yeah. To be honest, you might even want to go a lot bigger. Whether I'll bother with it or not, because I haven't really set the style up for it, but you could do it this way. I'm just going to rotate that around. Something like that. We could also mask it as well. Quite like it spilling out, but let's see what. We use a Rex mask. And there we are, it's cropped it nicely. I think we're going to leave it like that. It's a happy accident. And who used to say happy accidents were good? Yeah, you know, Bob Ross. Okay, so that's it. So what we've done is we've created quite quickly and quite roughly a task item. Now this task item is going to transform into a prefab that we can reuse and we can control the states of. So that's going to be, yeah, something quite fun to see happen. So in order to create the prefab, we're just going to drag the game object into a folder. It could be any folder really, but I've got one here called prefabs. And then you'll see that when you do that, the item turns blue, which sort of indicates that it's a prefab. And if you open that prefab, you can then edit it within its own sort of realm, if you will. So yeah, that's quite cool. So I'm just going to leave that like this. And then there's another thing that we need to add that we haven't, and that is a scroll view. So the ability to scroll the view based on the content inside. So right click UI scroll view. That's going to create a sort of off-the-shelf Unity scroll view. I don't want the scroll bars. You can keep them if you wanted to, but I'm not really interested in them. And I'm just going to drag this down here. I'm going to pop the task item inside, and I'm going to duplicate it a few times. Obviously, nothing's happening. That's because, much like in Figma, we had the auto layouts. We need to add something called vertical layout groups here, and that's going to basically do the same thing. We're not going to control the size, because if we control the size, that messes everything up in this case. But what we are going to do, we're going to adjust the spacing just so there's a nice little bit of breathing space between them. Looking good. And we want to add a let's see the viewport. We've got a mask going on. Let's create a few more. What I'll do, because it's a little bit distracting, I've just jumped into the prefab. I'm just going to turn those off by default, just so we can enjoy like the default view. And I actually kind of wish that I didn't control the child size as well. But let's just flip back to what it was. It's about 900, wasn't it? So upper center. There we go. We've kind of like basically got what we want. I'm going to remove the the background image here, just so everything's floating nicely. So if I was to hit play, I'll be able to scroll that list now, and then it will sort of move up and down like this, which is cool. So I'm going to remove that, and I'll remove this, and I'm going to put a rect mask to the see how that behaves. There we go. So now you can sort of see it's cropping it off nicely, but we're sort of able to scroll in like weird ways. Oh wow. So I need to remove horizontal scrolling from that. It's not something, you know, we need right now, but if you were doing like a landscape game and you had a list of items, landscape, you would use the horizontal equivalent. Looking good. And do I have a close button? I've got a button somewhere. Button text, there you go. So this is something that I made earlier. And just going to increase this a bit, get it into place. Just take a look at my Figma concept. Yeah, thereabouts, give or take. If I wanted to change the text on that button, I'd be able to do it directly in the prefab itself, and then that would have like a global effect everywhere else. So here, let's do button large. There you go, that's going to be nice. And then I might have an override here that I need to deal with. Okay, nice, that's looking good. Now we just need to add the little gradient fall off at the bottom. So that's easy, it's just an image component. Make sure you've got raycast target turned off, because that's going to stop any input underneath. So I'll put that there. Obviously the gradient's the wrong way, so I'm just going to hack it for now, put a -1. And I'm going to set the pivot to 1. There we go, so that's put it where we need it to be. I'm going to sample background color and place it. So as you can sort of see, I've hit play. Oh, the progress bars can be adjusted, so I need to turn off functionality there. But you can sort of see that we've now got a scrolling list. Now for things like, you know, if you can't see the items at the bottom, you need to give yourself a bit of a buffer. So let's do like 500 or 600 at the bottom. And then do put a content size fitter in there. There we go. So now that box is going to expand to whatever's inside that container. Put the buffer back in, hit play. See what we're dealing with. Beautiful, looks good. I need to turn off the interactivity of those scroll bars. So if we're going to task item, open up that prefab, just so I only have to do it in one place. Let's do slider, interactable, turn it off. And you want it to be like that, so let's give it a play. Perfect. It's looking good. It looks like there might be something blocking input. I'll look into it, but yeah. So as you can sort of see, we are yeah, pretty close to what we had within Figma, and if not, probably a little bit better, which is kind of what we always want to do, really, is try and improve where we can. One thing I will change, remove the background, so that's the default background, and exit out of that again, and here we go. Sweet. Yeah, so it's gonna look good. Brilliant. Right, so I love all this stuff. If you want to see more of it, like sort of a deeper dive into setting up UI, better ways of setting up than this, like, you know, sort of tidier ways. Obviously, it's all a bit, you know, just sort of thrown in there. It probably won't adapt to screen resolutions that well, but there's so much sort of involved in it, so it's all right for iPad, as you can sort of see, but we can probably do better than this. There's a few bugs and stuff, but if you're really interested in it, let me know in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to create more tutorials like this.